All right, episode 7 of the Troglodyte, aka the Acolyte. So, this episode, much like episode 3, is a flashback to the events that happened like 15, 16 years before this show with the coven and with the Jedi, except that in this episode, they reveal more of what happened and we see things from Saul's perspective and the perspective of the Jedi. So it was almost like the second half of episode 3. Now, I like when shows do stuff like this. I like when shows give us like the alternate perspective. I've always been a fan of that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure if this one really delivered. So I'm going to talk about kind of what I thought about this. So the whole episode was a flashback. Carrie-Anne Moss and the Wookiee Jedi, they all arrive. And it's a flashback to the third episode, like I said. And Saul sees the kids, and then they see that May and Osha are in some kind of like, they're together. This is before they meet them. And because Saul's like hiding behind a tree. And then they find that the witches are doing these weird incantations, like these weird, very Night Sister-esque. In fact, Saul tells the rest of the Jedi they might actually be Night Sisters. Now, I'll be honest with you. I am not an expert when it comes to Star Wars lore. I do not know how old the Night Sisters are. I assume they've been around for a long time in secret, but I do not know if the Night Sisters were actually a thing 100 years before Phantom Menace. I do not know. So that's up to one of y'all in the comments. Let me know if you know what the canon is on that, because I honestly don't know. So Saul insists on figuring out what's going on. So we see scenes of Indara, which is Carrie-Anne Moss, introducing themselves again. Now, with them is Torben, who at this point was a Jedi Padawan, and there's a scene where Anisea, one of the witches, is like almost seducing him, like taunting him. And this seems to be a situation the Jedi were not prepared for, as far as like their training goes, or at the very least Torben, even though he's just a Padawan. However, I say that because something else happens later in this episode. It's a little weird. We're going to get at you. A lot of things are weird about this episode. So Saul is talking about how he has a connection to Osha, and Torben, who basically has, he looks like Justin Timberlake from like 2000, bro, and from the It's Gonna Be Me video, bro. He looks just like him. He wants to take the blood sample. So they basically are copying what they did with Anakin, because basically they want to test out the midi-chlorians and stuff like that. Sindara is asking about this thing called the Ascension, and it sounds like, and again, this was difficult to understand, and if I don't get it, please forgive me. It sounds like the coven is planning to sacrifice someone. I'm not sure if it's sacrifice one of the twins, and there's a part later on where the mother appears to try to sacrifice herself and take one of the twins with her. It appears to be like that. So what happened is they reach out to the council, and they said they do not want the twins to be separated and brought to Coruscant because the Jedi are wanting to protect them. So we discover that both twins are identical, like symbiotes. That's the word they use. I don't know if it's like venom or what. As if they were one person torn into two from a Force Vergence. Now, the word Vergence was used a few times in Star Wars, specifically in Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon brings up Anakin Skywalker having that high midi-chlorian count. So these are not twins like Luke and Leia. These were created by the Force with a Vergence. Now, again, this is kind of similar to what this seems like, and it sounds like somewhat lore-breaking, is this seems like they're taking the concept of the virgin birth, like manifesting something out of the Force to impregnate, like what happened with Anakin, mixed with the dyad idea that they had in The Rise of Skywalker, right? With the idea being that Osha and May together form a dyad. Now, the word dyad was not used, but if you've been paying attention to how Disney's broken this fucking lore, they explained in one of the books or something that Palpatine, when he created Anakin, was actually looking for a dyad the whole time with him. And that's what led to Kylo Ren and Rey, the grandchildren, developing that. I hate that retcon. Absolutely despise it. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I like the idea before where Palpatine tried to manifest power from the Force and the Force fought back and made Anakin. Because Palpatine and Plagueis apparently did incantations to manipulate the Force, which I think is going to come into play in the final episode. I really think that the story of Osha and May will get back to Plagueis, and that'll somehow lead to him and Palpatine creating Anakin. It sounds like this is supposed to be a prequel to the prequel. That is to say, Osha and May predate Anakin, which to me takes away from the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force, because Rey and Osha clearly didn't. Then again, they already broke that in Rise of Skywalker when Palpatine survived. So Osha chose to go with the Jedi. She actually wants to go with them. But the mother's okay with her leaving the coven, but the coven doesn't want that. And there's a conflict. So the coven is preparing to fight the Jedi. From the way I'm interpreting it, it sounds like the mother wants to sacrifice one of the twins. I think. I could be wrong about this. This is very weird. For some kind of like dark side ritual. It just seems like it's dark side. The witches in this episode had this very gothic, creepy vibe to them. And I'll give the show credit for that. It does have a very creepy vibe, and that's intentional, I'm sure. But it sounds like they're sacrificing them. I don't know if they're teasing Abeloth, or there's been talk about, doing more with Abeloth down the road. I don't know, but that's interesting. So Osha is the one that started the fire, the small fire, and she didn't put it out. So I guess May never knew, or no, May started the fire. Oops, this is so confusing. May started the fire, which is weird because or maybe it was Osha. See, the whole thing is very confusing to me because I don't recall exactly, because they're obviously twins and very weird. It's very confusing. And I'm also confused because I don't know who the villains are. It's being played up like the Jedi are trying to be good and trying to be, genuine and trying to save the girls, but also those aren't their girls. Those children don't belong to them. So I'm not sure if they're trying to say the Jedi were in the wrong here or the witches. I'm not sure. So what happens is Soul asks where the twins come from and how they were created. And that's the most interesting thing, but we don't get an answer here. They obviously foreshadow Revenge of the Sith because the mother says one day every Jedi will be eradicated from the galaxy. And basically that's foreshadowing what Palpatine did in Episode 3. But how would she even know that unless she foresaw it with the Force? That probably is what happened. So it looks like she was doing some dark side incantation, maybe to sacrifice May. And then Saul stabs the mother with the lightsaber. May saw it. So there's a fight between Saul and the witches, and it's a pretty decent fight. There's some good Jedi stuff here. I gotta give them credit, man. When there's good stuff, I will say it. When there's bad stuff, I will say that too. The writing in this episode was very strange. Just like in previous episodes, very weird. The whole place starts to come down. The witches start to sing. And the Wookiee Jedi ignites his lightsaber and fights the other Jedi. So clearly he's being mind controlled by these witches. Now I was thinking, okay, if he's a Jedi Master, how is this affecting him? But clearly when there's that many witches, it kind of makes sense. I'm not going to... That's probably a lot of dark side power. I'm not going to criticize it, although I could be wrong because canon Star Wars lore changes so frequently, man, that I lost track. I really did. After Rise of Skywalker, I kind of stopped caring, because there was retcon after retcon. So what happens is the fight with the Jedi is good. Sindara at one point uses the Force to calm him down. All the witches fall over. Hell breaks loose. Osha's about to die off a cliff. Saul saves her. The Jedi leave. Sindara warned them. They make a scene where she says, I warned you, and then Saul just wanted the twins to be saved because there seems to be an emotional connection there, which Saul denies. So even though the Jedi are supposed to be stoic and not connect with their emotions, it still happens. I mean, it happened with Anakin, obviously. It led to him going through his dark times. And then Obi-Wan in Clone Wars even had an emotional connection too. The reality is this idea of Jedi being super stoic and not, controlling their emotions but not loving or anything like that is very difficult for a human being to do because human beings, even in the world of Star Wars, because they're not even the same kind of humans that we are. But even in the world of Star Wars, they still want connection. So Osha wakes up, and Soul asks, and Osha says what happened, and Soul tells Osha that May started the fire. And that's literally where the episode ends. So I have a feeling, I have a weird feeling that they're gonna somehow, this information will get back to Plagueis, and then Plagueis, and they'll use it to like create Anakin, and then, or try to create Anakin, and then it'll backfire on them. I don't know, but because that was like the original, like in the Plagueis novel, that was the story. I still think we're gonna see Plagueis. I mean, Leslie Headland said there's one more Sith Lord to be revealed, so it'll probably be him, probably in the last episode, to somehow build up to Phantom Menace. So it doesn't matter. The show's lore breaking. We've talked about this a million times. You should know by now, I'm not the kind of guy who complains and complains and complains and complains and complains. I can't deal with it, man. It's whatever. I don't care. One episode left. Let's see what they do and how it all gets resolved. I don't care about any of these characters. I know the actor for Saul is trying really hard. Really hard. And there were some lines here that I know were difficult for him to say. Remember, he learned English just to be in this show. But he's trying. And Carrie Ann Moss, I mean, she's fine. She doesn't get enough screen time, but she's okay. It's just, I sort of get what they're doing, but they still haven't made me care. And you have to write your characters so that I care about them. I mean, look at X-Men 97, the way they did it. You know what I mean? Anyways, those are my thoughts. The episode was better than I was expecting. It was, an improvement, I would say, over last week to a degree. The show's still not great. When you've got like a couple of good episodes, and I wouldn't even say good, I would say decent episodes. Yeah. I wish they explained more. We'll see. We'll see what happens. They'll probably do that stupid thing where they'll do a bunch of stuff, and then later on, they'll make a comic book or a movie or a novel that'll explain everything. Okay. That's it, y'all. I'm out. Take care.